What's up, y'all? It's me, Kel. Today is December 30th, 2018. But by the time you're watching this, it'll probably already be 2019, so Happy New Year officially. Y'all probably already know what I'm doing if you, read the title. But yeah, 2018 has been a really interesting year for music. Most of the mainstream stuff was, yeah, really bad. But outside of all that, there actually was some pretty good stuff to listen to. I thought this year I'd try to be a little more open-minded musically, and although some of my favorite artists put out music this year, I tried giving artists I normally wouldn't listen to a chance to. Artists I'm indifferent with or don't really like that much, or just ones I've never heard of. A lot of times I'll be scrolling through Apple Music. Yeah, I'm not on the Spotify bandwagon. Basically, I'm cooler than you. But anyways, I stumbled across plenty of albums, and if they sounded interesting, I'd listen to it. And yeah, some of the albums were disappointing, or some were just as average or bad as I expected them to be. But most of the time I actually ended up liking them, and even some of them have become some of my favorite albums of the year. And with that, why don't we get started? So here are some albums that didn't quite make the list but are still totally worth your time. Like I said, quite a bit. So now let's get started with the list. Basically, I'm gonna rattle off the first 10 and briefly explain why they're there. But then go a little more in depth for the actual top 10. What was that hand movement? It kind of looked like Thriller. So at number 20, we have Thank You for Today by Death Cab for Cutie. If I were making a list for most underrated albums of the year, this would definitely be in the top 10. I'd never listened to Death Cab for Cutie before this album, but I really like the sound on this. It's definitely more low-key, but not really in a boring way. At 19, we have Sparrow by Ashley Monroe. This is definitely one of my favorite country albums of the year, and this is coming from not the biggest country fan in the world. I really like the songwriting and instrumentation on this album. At 18, we have Sweetener by Ariana Grande. Yeah, this seemed to be a really mixed album for fans and critics, but I actually really liked it. While even after a couple listens, the album can still be a bit messy, I've come to actually really like the production on here. The Light Is Coming was pretty but pushing that aside, I have little to no problems with any of the other songs on the album. At number 17, we have Magic by Ben Rector. Ben is one of my absolute favorite singers and definitely deserves more attention. His album Brand New that he put out 3 years ago was fantastic. I actually just got that on vinyl for Christmas. But his new album Magic certainly does not disappoint either. I wouldn't say it's quite as up there as Brand New, but I still think it captures the same amount of fun that it had. At 16, we have Rainier Fog by Alice in Chains. I would have never expected to put an Alice in Chains album on this list, and not because I don't like them or anything. I've just never been a metal fan, or hard rock, whatever you want to consider them. But I was actually really surprised by this album. The lead singer, whose name has totally left me at the moment, has a great attitude about his voice, and I love the heaviness of the guitars on this album too. At number 15, we have Voice Notes by Charlie Puth. His album 9 Track Mind was met with amazing reviews. I mean, it's just been viewed as one of the greatest albums of our generation. Okay, I honestly didn't even think it was that bad. I literally still own it on CD, so there's that. But I didn't really know what to expect for his second album, and it actually really surprised me. It was a huge step up from 9 Track Mind, and I just love all the jazzy changes, and the features on this album were unexpected, but actually really cool. At number 14, we have Kanye West and Kid Cudi's duo Kid See Ghost with their self-titled album. I was originally gonna include Ye along with Kid See Ghost on this list, but since I wanted to be fair to all the other artists, I decided to only include one of them, and that one is Yandhi. You can definitely hear the time and effort that was put into this project. The production on this album is really unique, and I feel like with Kanye and Kid Cudi, like, one doesn't overshadow the other. They both do a really great job. At number 13, we have The Night Game by The Night Game. Martin Johnson, the lead singer of Boys Like Girls. Anyways, he created a side project called The Night Game. I actually figured out about this album when a friend told my brother about it, which then my brother told me about it, and dang did this album grow on me. He comes through with some really solid synth pop and rock jams. At number 12, we have Oxnard by Anderson .Paak. Or is it Oxnard? You tell me. I've listened to a lot of great rap albums this year, and this one's kind of halfway rap, halfway R&B. Definitely need to go listen to Malibu now because people still say it's better, which I'm really interested to hear because I really like this album a lot. At number 11, we have KTSE by Tiana Taylor. I really hated the way I just said that. KTSE by Miss Tiana Taylor. I also hated the way I said that. Holy crap. You know what? I'm not gonna keep making myself do this. I'm done. Over the summer, Kanye West produced 5 different albums over the course of 5 weeks, and this album was the last one to be released, and surprisingly, it was actually my favorite out of all of them. And this is after loving Ye, Kids See Ghosts, and even Pusha T's Daytona. But something about this album is really inviting, and Tiana seems to be a really talented vocalist, so I really enjoyed this one. And now, my top 10. I found out about Born sometime last year when a lot of my friends were talking about him, and I noticed he had been releasing some new singles too, which I was kind of loosely listening to, but was enjoying for the most part. I was still interested to see what his new album Blue Madonna would sound like, but it hadn't really clicked with me yet. But like, this album came out in early January, and just over the course of the whole year, it's turned into one of those albums that have been begging to be listened to all year long. This album really has a dreamy synth vibe about it, and a lot of the songs have become major earworms for me. Garrett Bourne's vocals might be a little off-putting at first with them being so high, but after a while you get used to it, and it really mixes well with the sound in my opinion. And with this album we have a first, a Lana Del Rey feature that I actually really like.
Why no more? Oh no, I take it if it's mine, I don't stay inside the lines, it ain't 2009, no.
So before I talk about this album, let me just say that this has nothing to do with Mac's passing. I actually listened to this album when it came out and it immediately clicked with me. I've never been the biggest Mac Miller fan over the years. I felt like some of the whining could be a little annoying at times, but on this album specifically, it actually sounds really good. One of my absolute favorite combinations in music is synth mixed with R&B and funk, and this album is filled to the brim with both. What's the Use is definitely a good example of that. Even the songs that could be considered generic at this point, like Hurt Feelings or Self-Care, are actually done pretty well and in a memorable way. And also I gotta make a quick shout out to the song 2009. The orchestration at the beginning is just mind-blowing, and just something about the rest of the song afterwards just feels so familiar to me. And not only because the song is literally called 2009, a really great point in my childhood. Aww. So out of all the albums in my top 10 list, this is actually the only one that I've only listened to once. And because of that, I don't have a whole lot to say about this album. So don't let Sunday fool you. Here's my hallelujah. One of my favorite female vocalists, Tori Kelly, made a surprise comeback this year with a gospel album, which at first when she announced that she was doing this, I was a little disappointed, because after not hearing from her for 3 years, I was expecting to hear more pop music, which is on the way thankfully. I still thought I would like it, but like, not as much as I actually did. Tori takes gospel music to an entirely different level on this album. She teamed up with people such as Kirk Franklin, The Cray, the Hamiltones, and man, some of these songs like Masterpiece and Sunday really make me want to dance around, really wide I might add. And some of the slower moments like Questions really dragged me in. Yes, this album's only 8 songs, but man, what a collection of songs they are. I cannot wait what else she has in store for 2019.
Oh, that's for sure.
So if there was an award for most replayed album of 2018, this would be the one. I think it's funny how I had literally no idea who Fickle Friends were when I accidentally found their album on Apple Music, and now I'm obsessed with them. And if you couldn't already tell by the cover art, this album takes inspiration from the 80s, and it's funky, it's synthy, is that a word? But all the grooves, the lyrics, the hooks, everything about this album is just so infectious, and it would literally not escape my mind anytime throughout this year. Yeah, 16 songs may sound like a bit much at first, but after getting really familiar with this album, I honestly don't care anymore. Also, side note, they mentioned me in their story a couple months ago, so hi guys, I'm famous, nice to meet you. So, along with You Are Someone Else, I also revisited this album a lot this year. Only difference is that You Are Someone Else came out back in March, and the 1975's new album literally came out last month. I think their last album was a tiny bit more memorable in my opinion, but I think their new album is their most mature sounding to date, and also their most interesting sonically. The first time I listened through, it was a little bit hard to get through just because of how surprising it was, but it's become a lot easier to listen through over the past couple weeks. I think the album as a whole is a really interesting concept, and I guess important concept, with it being about modern technology. Heck, I'm even using my iPhone to record this. But there are just so many standout tracks here. Some of my favorite songs of 2018 have to be I Always Want to Die Sometimes and It's Not Living If It's Not With You. Since the album is about modern technology, it shouldn't come as a surprise that most of the album is electronic leaning. And that definitely becomes clear on the double track How to Draw / Petrichor, another standout moment on this album. I'm so glad they're releasing another album next summer, and I'm really interested to see where they'll take their sound next. So here's another band I had absolutely no idea about until they put out their new album back in September. Metric is a Canadian indie rock group that I had absolutely no idea about until they put out their new album back in September. I decided to give this album a listen because I was hearing great things about it, and Justin Meldal Johnson, who has produced some of my favorite albums by Paramore and also Integrity Blues by Jimmy Eat World, which is another solid album. And does that streak of great albums continue with Art of Doubt? No, it doesn't.
Oh.
Because this album is fantastic. This is one of the very few albums from this year where I pretty much like every single song. I can see myself revisiting all of them. The synth hooks and choruses on this album are extremely catchy, and the guitars and other instruments throughout this record just make me want to rock out to this thing. I still haven't dug into the lyrics as much as I would like to, but I've definitely familiarized myself with the unique sound of this album. 21 Pilots came through this year with another excellent release. Like the 1975's new album, I feel like Trench is 21 Pilots' most interesting album sonically. Tyler Joseph teamed up with Paul Meany of Mute Math to produce this album, and after becoming obsessed with Mute Math over the past year, it's apparent that Paul Meany had a hand in this. And both the sounds of Mute Math and 21 Pilots kind of merge, and it creates this really captivating experience of an album that also has like a whole storyline of its own. Tyler explores many different topics on this album, including suicide on Neon Gravestones, which has definitely become a standout track with more listens. But this album constantly surprised me with the heavy guitars on the opener Jumpsuit, Levitate, which has a totally bad beat, and Spitfire lyrics as well. Overall, it's just such a fun album to listen to, and it might possibly be my favorite from them also.
You got me under your wings, under your wings. I'm under your wings.
One of my favorite Christian artists, Lauren Daigle, surprisingly broke through with her hit You Say this year, and I was also extremely glad to see a contemporary Christian song have this much success. While her debut album, How Can It Be, had some great moments on it, looking back at it, I can't say I'm totally head over heels for it. So I didn't really know what to expect from her new album, Look Up Child, but holy crap did she exceed my expectations on this album. Her vocal ability is just insane, and I absolutely love all the orchestration on this album too, and just all of it together makes this absolute masterpiece of an album. There were even times where I could feel myself tearing up at some of these moments, and I don't really cry at songs, so that's pretty impressive. I gotta say my favorite songs have got to be Still Rolling Stones, You Say Obviously, and my absolute favorite has to be Your Wings. I cannot help moving to that one. Kudos, Lauren.
Is there a word for the way that I'm feeling tonight?
And my number one favorite album of 2018 is hands down Golden Hour by Casey Musgraves. This pick is really interesting to me because before this album, I was not a fan of Casey Musgraves like at all. But then I listened to all the singles released weeks prior to this album and was absolutely mind blown. She mixes vocoders, these almost electronic sounding snare drums, and other various pop elements, and turns it into this absolutely fresh sound for country. And the rest of the album does just that as well. All the guitar work, the steel, and just the production in general give this album a really atmospheric feel. I can kind of just listen to it and just go like, ah, that's relaxing. I'm not one who always goes crazy over albums that critics go crazy over, but I gotta say that this album deserves every bit of praise that it's gotten, including a Grammy nomination for Album of the Year that I absolutely hope she gets. People will probably try to imitate this sound, but it just will not compare to how great and memorable this album really is. To Casey and whoever else had a hand on this album, you've created a masterpiece. I salute you. And there you have it. Those are my top 20 favorite albums of this year. If you agree with this list and also like this video, make sure to hit the like button and also subscribe to this channel for more content. See you later. That was a weak burp. I think that's like 5 in one video. I need to document these burps.